So just by way of introduction, Mark Stevens. I've been in recruitment for about 20 years. Before that, I was recruiting people for my own business in the marketing space. I spent 10 years building a recruitment agency business, and more recently I've moved into building recruitment software solutions primarily for in-house, but we're now getting a lot of agencies approaching us and using our services to increase the range of services that they can provide to their clients. Today, what I've decided to do, rather than just give you a demonstration of Smart Recruit, I thought what I would do to make it a bit more interesting and less salesy was to talk about sort of some of the strategy around what we do and how we combine technology with process and some research that we've been doing with some of the universities around human behavioural science. So, have we got a clicker, Alan? Okay, so some of the topics I'm going to cover today, I'll come over this side. I'm going to have a quick look at some of the research and stats, which really are the foundation for any strategy. This is what proves what's actually happening in the marketplace. We'll also look at the importance of emotional engagement, and I'll explain that in a bit more detail in a second. Then we'll look at how automation can be brought into the recruitment process without actually damaging the humanisation of the recruitment process in an online environment. And that leads us nicely on to talking about human computation, terminology that I'll explain in a little bit more detail when we get to that. And finishing off, we're going to just look at a couple of tactics for humanising the recruitment process. That's some things that you could actually implement yourselves. So just going to run through these stats. I'm not going to go into too much detail with them, but we might refer back to them as we get onto a couple of other slides. So interestingly, what we're seeing is a massive increase in activity online. There's been a 40% increase in job-related search activity through the search engines in just the last 5 years, and double the number of job-related searches taking place through search engines in the last 10 years. So more people are doing job-related searches online than ever before, which is a great opportunity for you guys looking to attract people if you can understand what these people are doing, where they go, how they do it, when they do it, which is what we're going to look at in a moment. 91%, and this data is all taken from research that we've done, surveys that we've done with candidates, and most of this has been cross-referenced with other research that has been done in the marketplace. I drew quite a lot of data from the Indeed survey that they did at the beginning of last year. Over 250,000 candidates completed that survey. So it really sort of rationalised our own research and made sure that we were on cue with what we were interpreting. So 91% of all applications take place by people that are already in work. So the obvious point behind that is you're not advertising your jobs to people who are desperate to move. These people are not going to apply to positions just because they can do it. They will apply to these positions if you can convince them that they would want to be part of that opportunity. 83% of people that we surveyed, we asked them to grade their level of commitment between 1 and 10. Where 1 was, we're no longer looking, no longer interested, and 10 was totally committed to moving jobs. And 83% of the candidates we surveyed gave a grade of 4 or less. So we have to be realistic. In the online space, if we are successful in getting our jobs in front of people, the candidates are not committed to moving jobs. 83% is the largest demographic of people that you're likely to present your opportunities to. Have not made a commitment to come and work for you. They're just interested in finding out more information. Passive searches. Basically, the behaviours of these people is quite significant in all of this. What we've been looking at is correlations between this demographic of people, this 83%. How do they behave? What do they do? When do they do it? Where do they do it? And some of the standout correlations that we picked out from this, the average search time, just 15 minutes. So these people are typically searching at specific times of the day, between 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and between 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock at night. Around about 80% of all job-related searches take place during this time frame. So we start to identify these people. We can identify the behaviours with this specific demographic. And because they're only searching in 15 minutes, there's a limited amount that they can do. So there's a very small window of opportunity when you're advertising jobs online to engage with these people and to attract them into your talent pool. 90% of searches, we say, took place between 12 and 2 and 6 and 8 o'clock at night. And what we also noted was that 80% of recruitment-related tasks were performed between 6 and 8 o'clock at night. Quite useful if you are screening candidates and if you're sending out requests for them to perform tasks which are going to help with your due diligence. Send your requests out at 6 o'clock at night at the start of that window. You'll get a much higher completion rate. If you're sending out reminders, if you're using SMS to send people reminders, that's the time to send them out. You'll see an increase in completion and conversion of those tasks. Quite interesting, 70% of passive candidates drop out of their search at the bottom of the first page of results. So what they're doing is they're sitting there in their lunch break, they do a quick search in Google, they go into a job board, they scroll down that first page or the summary page of results, typically 20 results on a page you might have noted, job title, location, salary, and 3 lines of copy. So that 3 lines of copy, which is typically taken from the first paragraph of your job advert, becomes the advert for the advert. And these passive candidates are only typically clicking into around 3 job ads. So that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to make your summary stand out from the other 20 job summaries on that page. So now just getting into some of the behavioural science. What I'm doing is just going to summarise some of it here. So we've been partnering up with Loughborough University and Bedford University, analysing the data, looking at the research, looking at the survey results and trying to understand what's going on. So I'll just explain some of this for you. So the first observation that Loughborough University came back to us with is there aren't 17.5 million job seekers. So that we've already established that. What we have is 17.5 million job searches being performed every month. And this helps us to understand what I call the unemployment paradox, and that is the lowest levels of unemployment since records began, and yet a growing number of job-related searches taking place. But now we understand that these people are only passively looking. What we can do is define these searches almost as a social activity. Now, I want to just draw an analogy here. If you think about how people like Rightmove have influenced people to log in and look at people's houses in the evening as a social activity, you know, most of us will have done something along those lines. Or, you know, going back even further, you just look at retail in the high street. We think nothing of walking into a shop with no intention of buying anything. And what's happening is people are being tempted into doing online recruitment-related stuff as a social activity with no objective or commitment around sort of moving jobs. And this really leads us into understanding the importance of emotional engagement. Because if you walk into a shop with no intention of buying anything, you don't buy anything based on logic and rationale. You buy it because of the emotional reaction that it's gained within you, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, because you think your life's going to improve. Maybe it's just you're going to look better on a Saturday night wearing whatever it was that you've picked up. But the same psychology relates to recruitment as well. So instead of listing a set of criteria that you're looking for in a job, it's more now about presenting opportunity and understanding what constitutes opportunity. So at the start of this process of attracting passive audience, increasing application numbers from the online space, it's really important that we understand how we get people emotionally excited and interested in what you have to offer. So understanding things like the opportunity within the business to grow, to develop, to learn, to experience something new, to work with outstanding individuals, to work with an outstanding brand. These are the sort of things that get people excited. And all of us have an element of discontent within us, within our jobs, and that is magnified from time to time based on different situations that happen naturally within the working day. Could have had an argument with the person next to us, a bad review, maybe some bad news about the business, whatever it's been, but these can influence our emotional state of mind, and combine that with the opportunities that present themselves to click into online recruiting stuff that go on during the course of the day. So many more recruitment adverts appearing, emails arriving. The average person gets exposed to around 9 to 11 recruitment-related opportunities every day, naturally, if you're in an office-based role. So what I just wanted to bring to the attention here was the relevance to impulsive buying. Now, we're not buying something. What we're doing is we're trying to create an impulsive reaction when somebody reads about your opportunity to get them to hit that apply button. And the reason why I'm emphasising this is because the whole process of nurturing people starts in the advertising stage to get people to want to engage with you, but then continues throughout the recruitment life cycle. Because the downside of attracting more passive candidates to apply for your jobs is that these people are more susceptible to dropping out of the process as well. So getting a good talent attraction process at the start very much needs to be combined with a good nurturing, romancing type process throughout the recruitment lifecycle. So it's a balance between providing more positive information about your opportunity and your role, building relationships, as well as extracting information that helps you to make better hiring decisions, the screening program that you go through. One word of warning that comes with this, and I'll draw back to the analogy with high street retail, is a phenomenon called buyer's remorse. And this was an interesting analogy that was brought up by Bedford University. They were talking about this well-known phenomenon within retail where people take goods back. So you buy something on impulse and then you rationalise afterwards and realise you've made a bad decision. Maybe it's too expensive, you don't really like it, whatever it might be. But this constitutes 12% of all returned goods in retail. So it's a very important phenomenon for them, and all the big retail businesses looking to try and reduce that percentage of goods being returned. But in recruitment, it works slightly differently. And what we discovered is the emotional reaction that occurs with a candidate, a passive candidate, that has applied for a job as an emotional reactive response to a good quality advert that you've presented to them, is they start to think logically about what this means. If you offer them an interview, it usually means they've got to give up a day of their holiday. Time out of work. It means that if they're going to take that interview seriously, they're going to put some preparation time in. So going to give up some of their evening time to prepare themselves for that interview. Most interviews involve travelling and cost. And of course, statistically, over 60% of the working population hate doing interviews. So imagine yourself as a passive candidate that's got excited about a potential role, and then you think about it logically afterwards. This is what goes on in people's mindsets, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, but it all contributes towards drop-off. So these are candidates that lose interest. We've all experienced it. Candidate applies, we try and make contact with them, and they don't reply to your emails, your telephone calls. Sometimes they don't turn up for interviews. And what is a growing phenomenon, what they're calling ghosting, people not even turning up for their first day's work. So understanding this emotional mindset and shift in people's mindset, we can actually now develop strategy to minimize that effect. And this is where we come on to the nurturing and romancing aspects. So we look at this throughout the recruitment life cycle. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to establish where the pivotal moments are, where candidates are either lost or gained. So we've already talked about one instance, which is when the candidate first applies, that emotional reaction, they start logically rationalising around, what this means to them if they do take up an offer of an interview. So we can counter that with, some levels of automation by providing them with more information that helps to sell the proposition of coming to work for you, for example. I'll go into that in a bit more when we get onto the automation side. But these moments occur, 6 or 7 pivotal moments during the course of the recruitment life cycle. And it's really important that we always think about, every time we communicate with a candidate or don't communicate with a candidate, we create a situation where the emotional element is lost with the candidate, their emotional interest in your opportunity. And this is where drop-off occurs. And we've been helping clients to establish how they can utilize technology and process in combination to minimize this happening. And subsequently, what we've seen is a massive increase in retention of candidates throughout the process. So not only are we helping clients to attract more applicants to their jobs, but we're also retaining the interest of those candidates right through to the point that we either decline them or get to an offer. So these are some of the automation elements that you might want to consider. Now, one of the main objectives that we talk about with clients is understanding that one of the frustrations that we all incur when we're running a recruitment campaign is the amount of administration time that can take place, especially when you get high volumes of applications, sifting through unsuitable CVs. But at the same time, we don't want to reduce the amount of applications coming through because we want to maintain the highest quality possible in the shortlist of talent that we're working with. So finding the way that the technology can assist us in this is quite key. So a couple of things we can use. First of all, to ensure that we attract the highest number of applicants into our pipeline or our prospect list, CV parsing is definitely recommended over and above redirecting candidates from an advert to an application form. We most commonly see this where people have committed to an applicant tracking system where the candidates are literally redirected to the applicant tracking careers page where they have to start completing administration tasks. Now, we cast our mind back to the data that we looked at just a moment ago. 83% of candidates are passive candidates. They've only got 15 minutes. Anything that you put in the way of that candidate applying for that job that puts them off will increase in drop-off. Typical drop-off rates when you redirect candidates from a job advert to an application form are between 60 and 80% across all industry sectors. We haven't yet found a method of reducing this significantly. Even when you reduce that process down to just uploading a CV, the maximum reduction you can get is down to about 50% drop-off. So it gets worse than that. Because we're able to capture every single candidate that comes through our system, we've been able to establish the quality of candidates based on our clients grading and ranking those candidates themselves. And we can see a direct correlation between the high quality candidates dropping off, because these are the people that are in work doing that job right now for your competitors. So what we can also do, if we are increasing the number of applications, is we can start the process of grading and screening these candidates automatically. So in our system, we have a technology, a parsing technology called Burning Glass, which evaluates candidates for relevance. It's a complex algorithm, and it looks at keywords in the CV, combinations of words, semantics, and it measures that against the detail that you put into your job advert. So the job title, the keywords, essential and desirable criteria. And what it's doing, it's accurately assessing the candidates for relevance based on the content of that CV. And it does it real time. It does it without any unconscious bias, and it does it without human error. So typically what can happen when you have a process like that, an automation process that is automatically grading candidates, you can set your results in your dashboard for your candidates that have come in. Typically I set mine at about 20 on a page. I work through my first 20 candidates, which have all been ranked as the best fit candidates based on skills and experience. And if I've already got my shortlist, either I'm going to speed up my screening process as I go through those candidates that are less relevant, or I could even just move them into an area where I can later decline them en masse. So what I'm doing is I'm removing all that extra administration time that I spend on unsuitable candidates. Recently we had a client that attracted 4,000 applicants in the first 3 days, and he rang me up and he said, "Your system's amazing. I've never seen so many applicants. I didn't even know that many people were relevant to our job were out there looking." He said, "But I haven't got time to look through 4,000 CVs." And I said, "Well, you don't have to. Let's start on the first page." And by the bottom of the first page, he found 17 candidates he was interested in. So we moved everybody else into another area, and we focused our time and our effort on then providing a professional screening and due diligence process with the 17 candidates he identified. And we gathered information through forms, by competency-based, skills tests. We did a video profile because it was a customer-facing role, so we were able to assess people, for their communication skills, presentation, personality, and we were able to identify the strongest 6 candidates which he invited to interview, and subsequently hired 4 people. And the total amount of time that that client spent on that campaign was just over 1 hour and 15 minutes. So this is how automation and technology can improve the efficiency in which you work, and that subsequently influeed the quality of engagement that each candidate had with that organisation as well. So just other things that we might be missing, simple things, automated email processes. Sorry, Anna, I'm standing in front of you. It feels more comfortable to stand this side. An automated email to each candidate that applies means that candidate now has an acknowledgement that you've received their application. You can thank them for taking the time to consider your opportunity. But this is also an opportunity to provide that candidate with additional information straight away before that logic, rationale, that negative stuff starts to happen in the mind of that applicant. So we can add a brochure, we can add links to other information, a day in the life of. And most importantly, we can introduce them to video. So video content can be used to present the organisation and give a flavour of the culture of that organisation, but also video content about the job. So what I believe moving forward, if we want to run a highly automated process without dehumanising the process for candidates so we don't lose them during it, is to use as much video content as possible, because video content gives a window into the organisation. It gives a window into meeting the person that's recruiting for that job, and it reduces a certain amount of irrational fear and anxiety that goes on in the mind of candidates, which can contribute towards drop off in the process. So links, there's no reason why if we have high volumes of recruitment, we do a lot of recruitment for graduates and for apprenticeships, and some of these roles literally get thousands of applicants. One of our biggest clients, Sytner, is the largest automotive dealership in the UK, over 1,200 dealerships, and they recruit typically 1,200 apprentices every year. So you can imagine the volumes of applications that come through. So we've actually got 3 elements of automation at the start of that process that we get the candidates to complete, so that by the time we get to look at the candidates, we're actually looking at a vastly reduced talent pool, which is more accurate in alignment with what we're actually looking for. But we know that we've attracted people from the right sources coming out of education. We've appealed to them using the right sort of imagery. And then we've started to screen these people based on the qualification processes that the client wants to administer. Some of that is form-based, some of it's creating video profiles for the candidates, etc. And there's no reason why in forms we can't put auto-decline questions. So if we're getting hundreds of applications and we know there are certain things which will immediately mean that we have to decline the candidate, maybe they need to have a driving licence or permission to work in the UK, these sort of things can be put into that application form, so they're automatically withdrawn from the process. They get a neat notification, well crafted, to let them know that unfortunately they're unsuitable. And another thing is just personalising bulk emails as well. Candidates do not know that you're bulk mailing them if you craft messages well. You know, what your applicant tracking or your recruitment management system should be able to do is use short codes, quick codes, whatever you call them, mail merge type things, so that everybody gets a personalised email. And if that's all sent out, you know, at the end of a 2-week period after you've already reached your shortlist and you know that you've invited for interview, then they get a professional notification and that protects your brand. There's no reason why these people can't remain in your talent pool as well, because they may be suitable for something in the future. And SMS, I just want to highlight the importance of SMS in the process. So we introduced SMS about 4 years ago. And what we noted was a massive improvement in response rates and response times. So an email sent from an applicant tracking system, typically the response times are around 48 hours. You send an SMS simultaneously, the average response time is under 4 hours. So using SMS to tell candidates, I've just sent you an email in regards to your application, can contribute towards better outcomes. So just quickly, just last 2 slides about rehumanising the process. We've already talked about video. Video is 2-way. We can gather information and insights from candidates, but there's no reason why we can't provide the insights to the candidates as well. It's really important that you provide both corporate video as well as an introduction to the actual opportunity. And I think this is going to be a tactic which will differentiate you in that process where candidates have a lot of opportunity to consider. And finally, what does it look like? You know, so this is how we use it in our system. When you create your job, this is the preview page. It works like a job board, so we're actually being indexed by Google and the search engines. But alongside the job advert, you can see here there's lots of information for the candidate to absorb. Statistically, what we're measuring here is the increase in conversion rate. So candidates on this page, we're increasing conversion by around about 20-25% over and above an advert on a job board. And where the candidates have clicked on the video, the conversion rate is around 40% higher. So we can see the direct influence that this is having on the outcomes that we're trying to achieve, and it's subsequently contributing not only to a richer pool of candidates that are applying for the job, but it's also contributing massively towards the retention of passive candidates if we do the advertising successfully. And that's me finished.